Have you ever sat in your living room, coffee in hand, staring at the quiet phone on the table and wondering why haven't they called? Maybe it's been weeks, even months since your children came to visit. You might find yourself glancing at the calendar, thinking about birthdays or holidays, wondering if they'll show up or if they've simply moved on. It's a quiet kind of sadness, one that creeps in during the still moments. When the house is too quiet, the days feel too long, and the ache in your heart feels just a little heavier than yesterday. If that sounds familiar, I want to start by saying this: you're not alone. So many parents, especially as we get older, find themselves in that same space. You raised your children, loved them through scraped knees and heartbreaks, watched them grow into adults. And now, when you thought there'd be more time together, it feels like the distance between you keeps stretching. It's not just about missed visits. It's about feeling forgotten, like you're no longer needed. That pain is real. And I want to acknowledge it before anything else. Because we're not here to pretend it doesn't hurt. We're here to talk honestly and gently about how to cope when your children don't come around the way you hoped they would. This video is for you, not to blame or point fingers, but to help you take care of you. To help you find peace, strength, and even joy no matter how often the doorbell rings. Because your life, your happiness, and your purpose do not end with how often your kids show up. Let's start with something that's often the hardest to admit: allowing yourself to feel disappointed without feeling ashamed. It's okay to miss them. It's okay to feel hurt when they don't call. You're human. You've poured your life into these people, and it's natural to want that connection to continue. But what I've found through talking with other parents, through my own experience, is that we often turn that disappointment inward. We start thinking, did I do something wrong? Did I fail them somehow? And we let guilt grow in a space that should be filled with grace. Here's the truth: adult children grow into their own lives. Their responsibilities multiply. Their schedules fill up. Sometimes they pull away not because they don't love you, but because they're overwhelmed, distracted, or struggling themselves. Other times, the distance may come from choices or pain you don't even fully understand. But that distance does not mean you failed, and it certainly doesn't mean you don't matter anymore. One woman I know, her name's Carol, raised 4 children and did everything she could to support them: school, sports, late-night talks, the whole 9 yards. Now only one calls regularly. At first, she blamed herself. But then she started writing in a journal every morning, not to dwell, but to express. She poured her heart onto those pages, and over time, something shifted. She began to see her feelings not as weakness, but as a sign of deep love. That journal became her way of giving voice to the things she couldn't always say out loud. And that simple act helped her reclaim some peace. You don't have to pretend it doesn't bother you, but you also don't have to let it define you. Acknowledge the hurt, but then ask yourself, what else in my life needs my attention? What can I give my heart to today? That brings me to the second thing that can help, and that's creating your own circle of connection beyond your children. Now I know no one can replace family. No one fills that space quite the same way. But that doesn't mean there aren't other people who can offer real, meaningful connection. I've met men and women in their 70s and 80s who have found lifelong friendships in the most unexpected places: walking groups, church groups, book clubs, even online communities. One man, Henry, started attending a community art class just to get out of the house. He didn't even consider himself an artist. But what he found wasn't just something to pass the time. It was a room full of people who made him laugh, ask questions, share stories. He said it brought a sense of belonging back into his life, one he hadn't felt in years. You don't have to sit by the phone. You can fill your calendar with people who want to spend time with you. Neighbors, friends, fellow volunteers. People who see your value not because you're someone's parent, but because of who you are. I know it's not always easy to reach out, especially if you've felt isolated for a while. But sometimes all it takes is showing up once. Saying yes to an invitation, asking someone to coffee. That first step might feel scary, but on the other side of it could be a connection that brings you joy, laughter, even healing. And let's be clear, spending time with others isn't about replacing your children. It's about not putting your entire emotional life into one basket. It's about building a village that supports you, even when family doesn't show up in the way you hoped. And if you're thinking, but I don't know anyone, start small. Visit your local senior center. Look into clubs or community activities that interest you. Even libraries now host events and classes. You don't need dozens of friends. Just one or two can make a world of difference. Now that we've talked about giving yourself space to feel and finding connection in new places, we're starting to create a different kind of foundation. One where your happiness isn't waiting at the door for someone else to knock. One where you get to decide how full your days are, how warm your world is, and how valued you feel. Let's keep building that strength together. Sometimes it's not just the silence that gets to you, it's the special days. Birthdays, holidays, anniversaries. Days that used to mean a house full of voices, laughter in the kitchen, and grandkids running down the hallway. Now those same days can feel painfully quiet. You put out the decorations anyway. Maybe cook a little something. You hope, even if you don't say it out loud, that someone might stop by. And when they don't, it hurts. Because even if you try not to expect anything, part of you always hopes. That brings us to something that's not easy, but it's incredibly important. It's letting go of expectations without giving up on love. What does that mean? It means you can still love your children deeply, even if you stop tying your happiness to their visits. Because when you expect something again and again and it doesn't come, it becomes a wound that reopens every time. But when you say, I still love them, and I'm letting go of needing them to behave a certain way, you free yourself from the cycle of disappointment. There's a gentleman I knew, Thomas, who spent years feeling bitter. He'd say things like, they don't even care if I'm alive. But over time, he realized that holding onto that pain only made his days harder. He began practicing a simple mindset shift. Instead of focusing on what wasn't happening, he focused on what was. He called it blessing what's here. The sun shining through the window, his favorite cup of coffee, a kind word from a neighbor, a memory that still made him smile. And strangely enough, something softened in him. He stopped holding his kids to standards they hadn't agreed to. He loved them from a distance. And he started writing them little notes, not to guilt them, but just to say, I'm thinking of you. One of those notes led to a phone call, then a visit, not because he begged for it, but because he let go of the pressure and reconnected through kindness. Now I know not everyone will respond like that. Sometimes our kids carry their own hurts or stay busy in ways that make us feel invisible. But your emotional freedom should never depend on someone else's behavior. You deserve peace, whether they show up or not. And sometimes, peace comes from doing something completely unexpected, redirecting your love outward. You have a heart that still wants to give, so find a place where that love can land. Maybe that's volunteering. Maybe it's mentoring a young person who doesn't have family nearby. Maybe it's helping at your church or community center. I know a woman, Barbara, who started volunteering at a local elementary school. She didn't have much mobility, so she just read stories to the younger kids. She told me, they don't know I'm not their grandma, but it doesn't matter. They make me feel like one anyway. Barbara found a way to keep her heart open. And in doing so, she gave her days new meaning. Because love isn't meant to sit still. It's meant to move, to reach out, to plant seeds in places that might grow into something beautiful. And when you do that, when you give without expectation, you start to feel lighter, more useful, more connected. You stop waiting for someone to fill your time and you begin to fill it yourself with things that make you feel alive. Now I want to talk about something else that can help ease the pain when your children are distant. And that's creating new traditions just for yourself. It's easy to feel stuck in memories of how things used to be. But when you cling too tightly to the past, you miss the chance to create something new, something just for you. You don't have to let go of your memories, but you can add to them. Let's say Thanksgiving used to be full of family, but now it's just another Thursday. Why not make it your day? Maybe you treat yourself to a special breakfast, or you write a letter to someone you care about. Or maybe you call up a friend who's also alone that day and share a meal together. There's no rule that says holidays have to look a certain way. You get to decide what they mean. You can create rituals that bring you comfort, even if they don't involve anyone else. A long walk on Christmas morning, a movie night with popcorn and your favorite old film. Lighting a candle and thinking about all the people who have loved you in your life, even if they aren't nearby now. You don't need permission to make your days meaningful. You're allowed to create joy even if the people you wish were there can't be. This isn't about replacing what's missing. It's about honoring yourself, giving yourself the gift of presence, love, and care without waiting for someone else to do it. And here's the beautiful part. When you start living like that, loving yourself, creating joy, finding purpose, sometimes the people you thought were gone begin to come back around. Not always, but sometimes. And if they do, they'll find someone who didn't just wait, but someone who grew. Someone who found strength in the quiet and turned it into something beautiful. But even if they don't come back, even if the phone stays silent, you will have built a life that is rich with meaning, filled with moments that belong completely to you. You are not invisible, you are not forgotten. And your worth isn't measured by who shows up on your doorstep. It's measured by how you keep showing up for yourself, day after day, with grace and courage and love. Let's keep that going together. It's a strange thing, isn't it, how something as simple as silence can feel so loud. That quiet from a phone that doesn't ring, or the stillness of a house that once held voices and footsteps. But if you've come this far, if you're still watching, still listening, then I want to remind you of something important. You're stronger than you think. And sometimes, the most powerful thing you can do is choose how to carry that silence. Not with sadness, but with self-respect. Not with resentment, but with purpose. That brings us to the final step, and it's the most important one of all. It's learning to nurture your own joy even when others don't show up. Because at the end of the day, your life belongs to you. And your happiness, your peace, your fulfillment, those are gifts you can still give to yourself every single day. This might mean going out and doing something just because it brings you joy. Not because anyone's watching. Not because it leads to anything, but because you deserve to feel alive. Maybe it's finally planting that little garden in your yard or on your balcony. Maybe it's learning something new, painting, baking, joining a choir, or taking a class online. Maybe it's spending an afternoon at a museum, watching the sunset with a cup of tea, or dancing to music from your youth in the kitchen when no one's around. You don't need permission to enjoy your own life. I knew a man in his 70s, widowed, children grown and living states away. He once told me I realized I was waiting. Waiting for them to call, to visit, to make me feel like I mattered again. Then I thought, what if I stop waiting? So he did. He started riding his bike again, joined a group at the senior center, took up photography just with his phone. And the funny thing, he said the loneliness didn't go away completely, but it shrunk. It didn't have the same hold over his days. That's the quiet magic of choosing joy. It doesn't erase your heartache, but it makes room beside it for something else: peace, laughter, beauty, even gratitude. It reminds you that you're not done yet, that you're still growing, still discovering, still here. And if there's one thing I hope you take from this entire message, it's this: your life is valuable even when it isn't being witnessed, even when no one's dropping by, even when the thank yous are late and the birthdays are forgotten. You are still worthy of joy, love, respect, and celebration because you exist, because you've lived, because you matter. You don't need to perform for anyone. You don't need to wait for someone to validate your worth. You've already earned your space in this world through everything you've done, everyone you've cared for, and all the ways you've carried others, even when it was hard. So today and every day, I invite you to do one thing, just one, that makes you feel good inside. It doesn't have to be big, it just has to be yours. And if you do that day after day, moment by moment, you'll begin to notice that the pain doesn't light anymore. It walks beside you maybe, but it no longer gets to steer, you do. And if you ever forget that, come back here. Listen to this again. Let these words remind you that you're not walking through this alone. There are others, many, many others, who know exactly what this feels like, who have cried in the same quiet kitchen, who have lit candles on birthdays that passed without a knock or a call, who have felt the sting of being left out, overlooked, or quietly set aside, and they're finding new ways to rise just like you are. Now I'd love for you to share something in the comments. You never know who might need to read your words. What's something that brings you comfort when you're feeling forgotten? What helps you reconnect with joy when the silence feels heavy? Whether it's a memory, a ritual, a little daily habit, I promise someone else could use the encouragement. And if this video touched something in you today, if it gave you comfort, clarity, or even just the feeling that someone understands, go ahead and give it a thumbs up. It helps this message reach other people who need it too. And of course, if you'd like more heartfelt videos like this, filled with hope, practical advice, and real talk about life after 60, hit that subscribe button and turn on the bell. We're building something beautiful here, a space where your voice matters, where your heart is heard, and where no one is ever truly forgotten. Here's to your strength, to your healing, to your joy. And most of all, here's to living your life, not in the shadow of someone else's absence, but in the light of your own presence. You are enough, you are still becoming, and you are absolutely beautifully not alone.